Nobody really stood up to Judge Harrison. Not until that day. He was the kind of man who didn't just run a courtroom, he ruled it. For years, people had tiptoed around him, afraid to speak up or push back. His word was law, and he liked it that way. That morning started like any other. Tight schedule, tight jaw, bad mood. "How many times do I have to repeat myself?" he shouted, glaring at the thermostat. "In my courtroom, the thermostat stays at 19 degrees Celsius, not a degree higher. Anyone cold can bring a coat." He whipped around toward the court reporter next. "If your fingers don't move faster, you'll be replaced before the noon recess." Everyone froze. Staff moved like mice, quiet, careful, trying not to draw attention. Even the crowd in the public gallery had gone silent, unsure of what might set him off next. A few local elders, dressed in traditional clothes, sat proudly in the front row. That didn't last. "Clear the front row," Harrison snapped, jabbing his finger toward them. "I don't want to see their pins or their slogans about justice. Put them in the back." People shifted in their seats, nervously obeying. His contempt wasn't subtle, and everyone in the room could feel it. But for once, someone wasn't afraid. "Your Honor," a woman said softly from the side, "the president of Burkina Faso is here to address the court on behalf of the accused." That got Harrison's attention. He turned with a smirk. "Perfect. Another idealist from the global south trying to lecture me about law and order." He gave his robe a frustrated tug and muttered, "What's next? Will he quote ancient proverbs and call it evidence?" The double doors opened. President Ibrahim Traore walked in. No bodyguards, no fanfare, just a steady, grounded presence. Even people who didn't know him leaned forward a little. You could feel the shift in the air. "Listen carefully, Mr. Traore," Harrison said, clearly unimpressed. "In this courtroom, your presidency means nothing. You're just another outsider with misplaced convictions." Traore didn't blink. "I came not to argue titles, Your Honor. I came to present the truth." The judge laughed, dry and mean. "Let me guess, some conspiracy from your country, another story about noble resistance." He leaned in closer, sneering. "I've silenced louder men than you, but by all means, go ahead, impress us." Traore nodded slightly, then quietly opened a folder. The defense attorney cleared his throat. "Your Honor, we are here today because Mrs. Henderson, a respected entrepreneur and humanitarian, is being accused of fraudulent activity." "Skip the fairy tales," Harrison snapped. "She's accused of fraud. That's all that matters." The lawyer tried again. "Her record of charitable work is crucial to understanding." "I said skip it." Harrison's gavel slammed down hard. "I will not turn this hearing into some sob story about family and faith." That's when Traore stood, not fast, not dramatic, just calm and respectful. "Your Honor, the nature of her business and her community work are fundamental to the facts." "Oh, I understand quite a lot, Mr. Traore," Harrison said, voice rising. "You and your type think justice is sentimental, that you can hide behind the language of compassion, but not in my courtroom." Traore kept his voice steady. "The records will prove that every transaction was legal and transparently documented." "Documented," Harrison sneered, "or manipulated, hidden." The room had gone so still, it felt like the walls were holding their breath. "I've seen your type before, so-called champions of justice, but always with dirty hands." Traore met his eyes. "And how many cases exactly have you seen, Your Honor?" The gavel trembled slightly in Harrison's grip. "Careful, Mr. Traore, you're approaching contempt." Still, Traore didn't back down. He placed a paper into the display tray with quiet confidence. "Exhibit A," he said. The screen lit up with bank records, neat columns, clean transactions, everything labeled and accounted for. "Objection," the prosecutor called out. "This wasn't part of discovery." Harrison looked pleased, like he'd caught someone trying to pull a fast one. "Trying to sneak in last-minute evidence, Mr. President." "I expected more discipline from a soldier." But Traore held up a receipt. "Page 47 of the discovery file, Your Honor," he said. "Submitted, acknowledged by your office 3 weeks ago." The judge's face shifted. His jaw clenched. Eyes flicked to the clerk, who had suddenly gone pale. That's not possible. I reviewed all discovery documents personally." Traore didn't push, just added gently, "Perhaps you should speak to your clerk about the documents delivered on March 15th. The clerk sank lower in her seat. Harrison's stare turned icy. "These documents are inadmissible." Traore stayed composed. "On what grounds, Your Honor?" "Because I said so," the judge exploded. "I am the judge here, or have you forgotten that in your eagerness to grandstand?" "I haven't forgotten anything, Your Honor," Traore said, still quiet but firm, "including the international laws of evidence, which clearly state, 'You dare lecture me about the law?'" Harrison's face was red now, shaking with fury. His grip on the gavel was white-knuckled. "I've been on this bench longer than you've been pretending to be a hero, Mr. Traore. One more word, just one, and I'll have you removed." The room was packed, but no one made a sound. The gallery buzzed with whispers just moments earlier, but now people were frozen in place. Even the prosecutor, who had spent the morning wearing a smug little smile, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Something had shifted. President Traore didn't move. He didn't blink. He just reached into his folder, slowly and carefully, like someone opening a box of memories they already knew by heart. He pulled out the next sheet and laid it down like it weighed nothing at all. "Before you act in haste, Your Honor," he said, "you may want to review Exhibit B." There was something in the way he spoke, not loud, not forceful, but firm. There was steel in it, hidden behind calm words. Judge Harrison noticed. His hand, which had already started rising toward the gavel, stopped halfway up and hovered. "Your Honor," Traore said again, this time as he arranged the papers with a kind of careful precision. Every edge was aligned, every page perfectly in place. "The financial records clearly show—" "Stand up straight when addressing my court," Harrison barked. But Traore was already standing like a soldier. His back was straight, his eyes steady, his tone as calm as before. "I was saying, he continued, unfazed. "These records demonstrate that every transaction in this case was fully transparent and, let me be very clear, Mr. Traore." The judge leaned in, his voice cold and sharp as ice. "In this courtroom, I decide what evidence is heard. I decide what matters. I am the law here. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear, Your Honor," Traore said. Then came the next line, smooth as a blade slipping from its sheath. "However, international protocol and evidence law state, don't you dare bring protocols into my courtroom." Harrison snapped, louder now, his face beginning to redden. "I've forgotten more about law than you'll ever learn in a lifetime of waving flags and holding speeches." The prosecutor flinched. For the first time, even he could see the judge was losing control. Harrison wasn't done. His voice dropped to a growl. "Mention one more rule, one more regulation, and you'll be joining your client in contempt. That's not a warning, that's a promise." Traore didn't react, not a twitch. He stared at Harrison like he'd been here before. Not in this courtroom maybe, but in moments just like this one. Moments where people in power used threats to silence the truth. "Are you threatening to imprison a sitting head of state?" he asked, his voice low and calm. "For presenting documented evidence in court?" Harrison's face twisted into something ugly. "In here, you're just another man who doesn't know his place." Then he raised his voice. "One more word, and I'll have the bailiff clear this entire courtroom." "Try me," Traore said. And just like that, silence. Real silence. Not even the creak of a chair or the shuffle of feet. Even the bailiffs, big men with squared shoulders, suddenly weren't so sure of their next move. Traore slowly reached back into his folder. This time he pulled out a sealed envelope. He placed it neatly on the table and looked up. "Perhaps, Your Honor," he said in that same quiet voice, "you should examine this before escalating further." Harrison narrowed his eyes. "Are you defying me, Mr. Traore? I promise you, you won't like what happens next." Then Traore added, as if they were still just having a polite conversation, "Before we continue, I would like to address a pattern observed in your recent rulings." That pushed the judge over the edge. "Pattern?" he shouted, slamming the gavel. "The only pattern here is your blatant disrespect. Sit down, or I'll have you removed." But Traore didn't even blink. He stayed exactly where he was. "The defense has the right—" "Rights," Harrison spat. "Let me explain something about rights in my courtroom. I decide who speaks, I decide who stays, I decide what truth looks like, and right now I'm deciding that you're in contempt." The gallery tensed again, shoulders stiffened, people leaned forward. This wasn't just a legal hearing anymore, it was turning into something else. "Officers," Harrison barked, "remove him now." But the court officers hesitated. They looked to each other, then back to Traore. No one moved. Something about this didn't feel right. "Did you not hear me? I gave an order." And then Traore spoke again, his voice cutting clean through the tension like a hot knife through cold butter. "Before you remove me, Your Honor, you may want to consider the international implications of a judge ordering the arrest of a sovereign head of state in open court without cause." Harrison laughed, a strange, high-pitched laugh that didn't sound right coming from a man in control. "Without cause? I am the cause. My word is law in this courtroom." "Actually, Your Honor," Traore said, and suddenly it felt cold in the room, like the temperature had dropped. "There's something else you should know about who gives orders in this courtroom." The judge's hand, still holding the gavel, started to tremble. Just slightly, but enough for everyone to see it. Enough for him to feel it. "Mr. Traore," he snarled, "I'm giving you one last chance to submit to my authority before I have you dragged out of here in handcuffs." "Interesting choice of words," Traore replied. "Authority, let's talk about that." "There's nothing to discuss," Harrison shouted, pounding the gavel again. "I've made my ruling." "Have you?" Traore asked, locking eyes with him. "Because I don't recall any ruling on the actual evidence. You seem more interested in issuing threats than examining truth." The judge's face flushed bright red. "How dare you question your authority?" Traore said before he could finish. "Yes, you've made it very clear that's your top concern. But what about Miss Henderson's case? What about the truth you seem so eager to avoid?" "I'm not avoiding anything," Harrison snapped, but his gaze flicked, just for a second, back to the envelope on the table. Then Traore slowly picked it up. "You won't mind explaining why every piece of exculpatory evidence in this case has mysteriously vanished from the court record?" He placed the envelope squarely in front of him. "Then explain," he added, eyes never leaving the judge, "why key financial records were sealed without legal basis." "Those files were sealed under my authority," Harrison roared. "I am the law here. No one is above me in this courtroom." You could have heard a pin drop. The room was frozen, silent in that eerie kind of way where even people's breathing seemed to stop. All eyes were on the bench. The prosecutor, who had been confident just a few minutes ago, now looked like someone had pulled the ground out from under him. But Traore, still, watching, waiting. He didn't need to yell, he didn't even blink too hard. He had the quiet stillness of someone who already knew the ending to the story. "Tell me, Your Honor," he said calmly, "why are you so obsessed with power rather than justice?" That did it. Harrison's face turned a shade darker, veins in his neck popping as he pointed furiously at the guards. "Officers," he shouted, "remove this man from my courtroom now. Anyone who refuses will be held in contempt." But no one moved. The officers weren't looking at Harrison anymore. They were staring at the table, where Traore had begun pulling something from the sealed envelope with careful fingers, slow and sure, like someone laying down cards he didn't need to bluff with. "I'll tell you what's in that envelope," Harrison snapped, desperate to get back control. "More baseless accusations from some foreign crusader." "Actually, Your Honor," Traore said, voice smooth, "these are the original documents from the Henderson case, the ones that conveniently vanished from court records last week." Harrison's smug expression cracked right down the middle. "That's impossible. Those files were—" His mouth stopped before the sentence did. "Were what, Your Honor?" Traore asked gently. "Destroyed? Sealed? Or perhaps moved into that special filing cabinet in your private chambers?" "You have no right to question how I handle files," Harrison snapped, but now his voice wobbled as it rose. "I run this court. I decide what stays and what disappears." Traore gave a slow nod, not looking away. It was the kind of nod that said, "I'm listening. I'm also writing this down." "Indeed," he replied, "including which cases get dismissed and which evidence gets erased." Harrison slammed both hands on the desk in a fury. "One more word and I'll have you banned from this court entirely." His voice cracked. "I have connections, Mr. Traore, friends in high places. You couldn't imagine." Traore blinked once. "Interesting that you mentioned connections," he said, cool as ever. "Would you care to explain to the court your meeting last Thursday night?" The judge's grip on his gavel tightened. "What meeting?" he stammered. "You're delusional." "The one in the parking garage of the Liberty Building, 3rd floor, 11:47 p.m. Harrison's pupils dilated, his lips parted, but no sound came out. Or, Traore added with perfect timing, "Should we wait for the surveillance footage?" The judge snapped out of his trance, but not in a good way. You're spying on me," he screamed. "This is illegal. Officers, arrest him now." But again, the officers stood still. Traore gently began placing photos onto the evidence table, one by one, like puzzle pieces falling into place. "These images," he said, not rushing, "tell quite a revealing story." "I will not be blackmailed in my own courtroom," Harrison shouted, practically vibrating with rage. "Remove those photos. That's an order." Traore didn't even glance up. "Blackmail?" he repeated, raising one eyebrow. "No, this is evidence of public meetings. Unless, of course, there's something in these photos you don't want the court to see." Harrison's eyes darted everywhere, at the photos, at the doors, at the audience full of reporters and foreign officials. His grip on the courtroom, once iron, now looked slippery. This is all fabricated," he yelled. "A political plot, a foreign interference scheme." "Like the scheme to bury Miss Henderson's evidence?" Traore asked, voice unshaken. "Or the documents sealed in the Williams case last month?" "Those cases are sealed," Harrison blurted out, sweat starting to gather at his brow. "You have no right—" "Actually," Traore interrupted, calm but firm, "I do. As head of state representing a partner in the Judicial Oversight Coalition, I have every right to investigate a pattern of misconduct, especially one involving systematic targeting of reformist and minority defendants." Harrison just stared, pale now. You've been investigating me?" Traore reached for another photo. "Not just you," he replied. "Would you like to explain why 6 other judges attended that same garage meeting?" The judge's hands trembled as he reached for his water glass, but missed. This is inadmissible. All of it," Harrison cried. "I'm ordering every document sealed immediately." Traore didn't even look up. "You can't seal what's already been logged into international evidence systems, Your Honor," he said. "In fact, everything happening in this courtroom right now is being recorded and streamed to the Judicial Integrity Division." That stopped everything. Even the prosecutor shifted uncomfortably again. Harrison's head jerked around the courtroom like he was searching for an emergency exit, one that didn't exist. You can't investigate a federal judge without proper authorization." Traore lifted a new document into view. It bore stamps, signatures, and dates. "This authorization was granted 3 months ago when the first anomalies in your sealed case patterns emerged." The sound that came out of Harrison's mouth wasn't even a sentence, more like a noise, a protest with no words. "This is a setup," he shouted, his voice cracking. "A witch hunt. I'm a judge of the Republic. You can't—" "Can't what?" Traore cut in, his eyes steady. "Can't reveal how you've been systematically destroying evidence, can't expose your coordination with other judges to silence defendants and protect illicit networks." "Lies!" Harrison screamed, spit flying from his lips. "You have no proof." "No," said Traore, voice as still as a lake on a windless night. "We have your own words, Your Honor. Every threat you made to witnesses, every order to seal or destroy files, every meeting in that garage, all recorded." Harrison didn't move, didn't speak. He just froze. Traore didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just gave a quiet nod, slow and heavy, like someone confirming the final piece of a puzzle. "Your own security cameras, Your Honor, your own phone, your signature on every classified file you thought would never surface. You thought they were safely hidden," he said, laying down one last file, his voice steady as ever. "Would you like the court to hear the recording where you ordered your clerk to shred Mrs. Henderson's evidence?" Suddenly, the air changed. From the clerk's desk, near the bench, a sound broke the silence, a sob. Everyone turned. The young court clerk had buried her face in her hands. He made me do it," she cried through her tears. "He said he'd destroy my career if I didn't." "Silence!" Judge Harrison shouted, but it didn't carry the weight it used to. His voice cracked like glass under pressure. He grabbed his gavel with both hands, but it looked more like a lifeline than a symbol of authority. "None of this is admissible, none of it. I order all documents sealed and destroyed immediately," he yelled, the desperation bleeding through his every word. But Traore didn't budge. His next words rang through the courtroom like a thunderclap. "Would you like to explain to the court, Your Honor, why you're so desperate to destroy the truth?" That's when Harrison really lost it. He pushed himself to his feet, his robe hanging crookedly, his face blotchy and wild. "I will not stand for this," he bellowed. "Officers, I'm ordering you one last time. Arrest him and seize those documents." Before the officers could make a move, a calm, commanding voice echoed from the back. "Actually, Your Honor, the only arrest today will be yours." All heads turned. A group of people had just entered the courtroom. They weren't regular attendees. Suits, badges, a quiet, practiced intensity. They walked down the aisle like they'd done it before, many times. Federal agents and international investigators. Harrison stumbled back, as if the floor had tilted. "No, no," he gasped. "You can't touch me. I have immunity. I have connections." "Do you even know who I am?" "Oh, we know exactly who you are," the lead agent said, stepping forward. "Judge Arthur Harrison, senior architect of one of the largest judicial corruption networks in modern history." The courtroom didn't move. No one whispered. No one blinked. "This is a mistake," Harrison stammered, words tumbling over themselves. "I can explain everything. The foundation. They made me. They have leverage on everyone. If I talk..." He stopped himself too late. "The foundation?" Traore asked, his voice like a locked door clicking open. "You mean the same one that deposited 100,000 into your Cayman account after every conviction you handed down against reformist defendants?" "You planned this," Harrison shouted, his hand shaking as he pointed at Traore. "You set me up. This was a trap." "No, Your Honor," Traore replied with a calm, almost tired tone. "You set yourself up. We simply let you speak long enough to hang yourself with your own words." In a sudden, wild burst, Harrison lunged toward the table, arms reaching for the files. But he didn't get far. The agents caught him mid-swing and pinned him down before he could tear a single page. "I am the law," he screamed. "You can't arrest me. I am the law." "No," Traore said quietly as the cuffs snapped around Harrison's wrists. "You were meant to serve the law, but instead you chose to corrupt it." Then he turned to the lead agent without missing a beat. "Agent Roberts, you'll want to move quickly on the other locations that we discussed." That caught Harrison's attention like a slap. His head jerked up. "What other locations?" he asked, the panic rising in his voice. "The 7 other courtesitas where your co-conspirators are currently in session," Traore said, checking the time. "Did you really think we were only watching you?" Whatever color was left in Harrison's face drained all at once. You can't..." "What? Execute simultaneous raids?" Traore replied, glancing at his watch again. "They're already happening." A wave of murmurs rippled through the courtroom like a rising tide. Harrison collapsed into the arms of the agents. His legs just gave out. He didn't even try to resist anymore. "You have no idea what you've done," he mumbled, almost to himself. "These people, their reach," Traore said, cutting him off, "ends today. Every offshore account, every sealed file, every secret meeting. It's all coming to light now." Harrison looked around wildly, like someone trying to find a way out of a nightmare. His eyes landed on the doors, then the windows, then his own chambers. But there was no escape left. "But the foundation, they'll never let..." "You mean the one whose entire board of directors is being arrested as we speak?" Traore raised an eyebrow, as if the whole thing was just one more item on today's to-do list. Harrison's knees buckled. 2 agents had to hold him upright. This can't be happening," he whispered. "Actually," Traore said, pulling out his phone and holding it up to show a stream of breaking news alerts, "it already has." The agents began walking Harrison toward the door, his hands bound, his reputation in ruins. But before he left the room, he turned one last time. His eyes burned. Not with shame, not even fear. With rage. "You think this changes anything?" he growled. There will always be others like me. You can't stop us all. Traore didn't blink. You're right about one thing, he said. There will always be those who abuse power, but there will also always be those who stand against them. And that is what makes justice real. Not the robes, not the titles, not the fear, but the courage to confront corruption and expose it. What happened after Judge Harrison was taken away didn't just stop at him. It set off a chain reaction. Investigators started digging deep, and what they found wasn't pretty. Dozens of old cases, quietly closed, wrongly judged, swept under the rug, were pulled back into the light. People who'd been pushed aside, ignored, or punished unfairly finally had a chance to be heard. One of the first to walk free was Mrs. Henderson. As soon as a new judge took over and saw the full picture, the documents that had been hidden, the witnesses no one heard from, it became clear there was no case, no fraud, just someone who'd been doing good work, attacked by a system built to silence people like her. The charges were dropped, just like that. And here's the thing, it wasn't the court system that fixed itself. It wasn't some miracle of justice doing the right thing. It was people, real people, who refused to look away, who spoke up, who showed up, who pushed back, even when it was hard. If this story got to you, if it made you feel something, if it reminded you that truth can still beat power, then don't let it stop here. Tap that subscribe button, join the crew, help us keep sharing stories that matter, that shake things up, that hold the powerful accountable.